Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. Okay, so this episode is a bit unique in that it has nothing to do with the plot of Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, like, at all. It's literally just a classic Scooby-Doo mystery, but with the added twist that none of it actually happens and none of it is actually real or important to the plot. So, yeah, this episode is literally the episode Mystery Solvers Club State Finals is basically about the Mystery Solvers Club State Finals, except the whole thing kind of takes place in a fever dream that Scooby has while he's sick. So, yeah, as a result of that, nothing actually happens, and ultimately the mystery doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's literally just something that Scooby has while he's having a fever dream and kind of trying to sleep off a cold. So that's pretty much all you need to know about this episode. None of it matters, but it's still a fun mystery regardless. So, yeah, the episode actually opens up with Scooby being sick, and the rest of the team is trying to make him feel better. And Scooby is kind of pointing out that he isn't feeling all too well, but everybody else remarks that he should really get some rest. But Scooby merely remarks to the rest of them that he feels fine, and which Fred is kind of happy to hear, pointing out that he wouldn't want to go to the Mystery Solvers Club State Finals without him, which is actually a real thing, but we don't actually get to see it in the context of this episode. It doesn't actually happen on screen, or at least not in the way that we're about to see. But Daphne merely scolds Fred, pointing out that obviously they're not going to be able to go if Scooby is sick, and Fred kind of points out that should be obvious, but then he leaves for a few minutes to actually grieve that he can't go. They can't go. And sure enough, Scooby is relieved to find out that they're not going to go without him. But then Velma suggests that the only reason they're not going is because they can't go without their sidekick, which upsets Scooby greatly. And Daphne actually winds up scolding her for that, pointing out that that's not what they mean, that's not what she meant at all. At which point Shaggy shows up with some homemade chicken soup, which has the whole chicken in it. I should mention he didn't debone the chicken like at all. He just left the whole thing in the soup. But in case he's too distracted to actually eat it and winds up sneezing it over everybody. When they kind of try to comfort him, pointing out that it's okay, he merely points out that they should just go without him since obviously they don't need him. But they merely correct that that's not true, and eventually Shaggy points out that they should probably just leave and let him get some sleep. So they do exactly that, at which point Scooby then proceeds to fall asleep, still bitter about the fact that Velma called him a sidekick, and proceeds to fall asleep, and in his dream he's completely 100% fine and doesn't have a cold at all. So yeah, he doesn't fully understand that he's asleep. I should mention. He just kind of closes his eyes, and then miraculously he's better and has no idea. Well, he doesn't really question it. He's just like, hey, I'm better. Let's go to the state finals now. So yeah, in any case, after checking for his fever and all that, he then proceeds to go downstairs to go and tell the rest of the gang. That he's all set to go, and now he's actually gotten over his cold. And Fred especially is very happy to hear this, because as we've established, he was very excited to go to the Mystery Solvers Club State Finals, especially since, as he points out in the episode, his dad was the one who arranged it. So with that, he then proceeds to escort them to the rest of the school where the state finals is actually being held, and we actually meet several various classic mystery-solving teams that Hanna-Barbera has made over the years. So yeah, obviously Scooby-Doo is the main one, but in this episode we're also semi-introduced to the Neptunes, who are a team of mystery solvers. We also meet the Funky Phantom crew. We also meet the Teen Angels and a couple of others, the Speedbugs. And in any case, yeah, we just meet like four other teams that are there as well. And while the rest of the teams actually get acquainted, Scooby actually winds up getting acquainted with each of the mascots, at which point we are properly introduced to all the mascots from each of the teams. We meet Captain Caveman, who is who is the head of the state, who is kind of the mascot of the Teen Angels, and he is a caveman with superpowers. But don't think about it too much. We also meet Jabberjaw, who is a talking shark and mascot of the Neptunes. And then there's Funky Phantom and Boo, who are obviously the mascots of the Funky Phantom crew. And then we also meet Speed Buggy, who is the mascot of the Speed Bugs and is a talking Speed Buggy. So yeah, these are all actual Hanna-Barbera characters, by the way. They've all appeared in Hanna-Barbera cartoons, but and they also appeared in Scoob somewhat, but they appear at various points throughout the movie Scoob, which I have seen, and it is pretty good. There's no real mystery in that one, but if you want to check it out, it's a fun crossover film. But yeah, they all show up and kind of introduce you to one another and just kind of get acquainted. At which point we meet Principal Quinlan, who may or may not exist because she seems to only exist inside of Scooby's fever dream. But she walks up on stage, and we get the sense that she's a very nervous individual. She's not very confident. She's not a very confident person, which is ironic considering she's the principal of a high school. But in case she introduces everybody, she points out that she just opens up with the fact that while she doesn't really understand the whole idea of mysteries and doesn't fully support the idea of solving mysteries, she does point out that Fred Jones Sr. kind of funded the Mystery Solvers Club state finals and told the school board to do something, so she kind of has no choice. And upon her pointing out that it was his dad that funded the whole thing, Fred then proceeds to get up and celebrate, pointing out that that's his dad, and that the rest of the Mystery Solvers might as well just resign right now. But in case Professor Quinlan also Principal Quinlan also reveals that Angel Dynamite is going to be their musical accompanist throughout the evening, and that she's going to be playing a bunch of sick beats on her record scratcher, which sure enough, Angel has her turntable with her, and it remarks that she's going to be laying down some funky tunes in the meantime, so that everybody should get ready to look forward to with that. But in case it then comes time for Principal Quinlan to actually reveal what the mystery that they're going to be solving actually is. And sure enough, she then proceeds to pull out an envelope and is about to open it when suddenly we're introduced to a new character, Lord Infernicus, who shows up and declares that there's been a change of plans and that the Mystery Solvers Club state finals is going to play out a little bit differently than how everybody was expecting. And with that, he then proceeds to kidnap all of the kids. He just kidnaps all the kids and leaves and also to a lesser extent Boo, who was kidnapped alongside them. And with only the mascots, Principal Quinlan and Angel Dynamite left, he then declares that outside communications outside of the school have been cut off. States that the rest of the mystery solvers are in the school with them, and if they want to find their friends again, they have to solve the mystery, and then proceed to try and unmask him. At which point he then makes a loud chuckle to himself before leaving and disappearing through the ceiling. And it's at this point where Angel Dynamite actually takes a bit of charge, pointing out that they're going to need to figure out a way to actually get contact outside. And to reiterate her point, she then tries to call on her phone and discovers that communications are indeed actually jammed, and there's no way to actually contact anybody outside the school, even if they wanted to. And concluding that Lord of Fernicus most likely jammed communication, asks the principal if there's any way to actually get communications back online, and if there's any way to do it. But by this point, Principal Quinlan has actually disappeared and is now hiding underneath one of the tables, and Jabberjaw of all people actually winds up finding her and uncovering her from under the table, and at which point Angel Dynamite then proceeds to re-ask her question, but she merely states that she doesn't want to come out and that she just wants to hide until the whole evening ordeal is over. But Angel isn't having any of it, and just tells her that she's going to have to help them find a way to actually communicate with the outside world, and actually get in contact with the police or whoever can help them to kind of figure out more or less how to actually beat Lord Infernicus and figure out how to get to contact with the outside world. At which point, Principal Quinlan reveals that there's actually a communications tower on the roof, and that she knows the way there, and that she'd be more than and while she's not exactly enthusiastic about guiding Angel, she does point out that she will indeed help. At which point, Angel points out that it's probably going to be a long way, and actually winds up asking Speed Buggy for a ride. So Speed Buggy actually winds up giving them a ride in his chassis, and with Scooby being confused as to what he's supposed to do to actually help solve the mystery. So at which point Angel merely reiterates that he's a dog. He should just sniff out some clues and work it out from there. At which point she drives off through the rest of the school to find the communications tower. At which point Jabberjaw then begins to start hyperventilating, pointing out that he doesn't feel like they'll ever be able to actually find the kids. And points out that he's not used to kind of being in the spotlight because he's a sidekick. He's not normally supposed to solve the mysteries. He just kind of follows the group along and maybe gets involved at some points. But yeah, he starts hyperventilating with Captain Caveman remarking that he'd be more than happy to calm him down. But Scooby remembers that he's a shark and pulls out a hose and proceeds to spray him with some of it, and what Jabberjaw actually winds up thanking him for, but then Scooby notices something on the floor where Jabberjaw was standing, and Funky Phantom actually points out that it seems like it's some sort of wood chips. At which point Scooby starts sniffing around to try and figure out what it is, and then proceeds to start following a trail through the school. Meanwhile, Principal Quinlan and Angel Dynamite, they actually eventually manage to get onto the roof of the school and do eventually discover the communication tower. All throughout this, Principal Quinlan merely remarks that she kind of admires Angel a little bit for her tenacity, pointing out that she's a very openly strong woman, and also points out that she's akin to a female wrestler. But in case after driving around on the roof for a little bit, which Principal Quinlan even remarks isn't really regulation for any sort of school, and that's a good point. They do eventually find the communication tower, and Principal Quinlan merely confesses that her predecessor put it there because he thought he could get free TV, which didn't wind up working. But in case with that, Speed Buggy then proceeds to start climbing up the tower with the two girls in it. But meanwhile, Scooby continues to sniff around for wood chips, and eventually they lead to the biology classroom where they discover, this is much to the rest of the mascots' horror, that all of their friends have seemingly been turned into guinea pigs, which actually winds up terrifying them quite a bit. And Captain Caveman is the most upset about all of this, pointing out that the teen angels actually helped groom him and helped keep his fur relatively flea free and lice free and all that, and more or less kept him clean. And without them, when he finds out that they're actually now guinea pigs, he then kind of goes into a blind rage and starts smacking things. So with Funky Phantom actually calming them down, pointing out that there likely is a way to actually save them and get them back. But eventually Scooby does wind up finding his group, and after notice in an effort to try and get in contact with Shaggy, he asks the Shaggy guinea pig to actually blink his eyes if he can actually hear him. Once for yes and twice for no. But the guinea pig just kind of gives him a blank stare, and at which point Scooby tries to offer him a Scooby snack, which the guinea pig Shaggy actually winds up throwing at him, and after that little display concludes that the guinea pig most likely isn't Shaggy, and points out that there seems to be something very strange. But Funky Phantom actually decides that they have indeed solved the mystery, since obviously they found their friends, pointing out that they're literally right there. And then gets into a bit of an altercation with Scooby, pointing out that obviously Scooby doesn't seem to realize that they've solved the mystery, and points out that they weren't able to actually save their friends in time. So he points out that now the only thing left to do is to actually figure out how to actually turn them back. At which point he proceeds to leave the biology room. But Scooby kind of tries to stop him, pointing out that it's obviously way too easy. And that they got there a little too easy and a little too effortlessly. But Funky Phantom merely points out that Scooby doesn't seem to know when to quit, and points out that And obviously now all that's left is to go to the library and figure out how to turn their friends back, points out that obviously Scooby doesn't seem to know how to lead the mystery and that he's leading the mystery now, at which point he proceeds to leave. And with Jabberjaw and Captain Caveman not really sure who they're supposed to side with. But in any case, Funky Phantom then proceeds to go around the corner, and he winds up disappearing, and Lord Infernicus winds up cornering the group. Which kind of causes the rest of the mascots to panic, so they run to the end of the hallway to try and escape through the emergency exits, but to their horror, it's locked. At which point Lord Infernicus points out that they only have so much time left to actually solve the mystery, and that if they don't work to solve the mystery, he points out that they're not allowed to leave until the mystery is solved, and points out that they only have so much time left. At which point he kind of gives one last sinister laugh before disappearing. And when they discover that, and after disappearing, he kind of trashes he also trashes the hallway quite a bit while trying to get to the rest of the group. So which Captain Caveman remarks that he's gone. At which point Scooby notices that there's actually a couple of things around that they actually found a clue around the rest at the foot of where Lord Infernicus was. And picks and goes to pick it up while Jabberjaw kind of freaks out a little bit more, pointing out that obviously not only did Lord Fergus just threaten him to stop trying to solve the mystery, but he also points out that that it seems like they're not going to be able to get their friends back, and also points out that he feels like that now that Funky Phantom has disappeared, that they're not going to be able. They're now down a member, but Captain Caveman then proceeds to calm him down by just picking him up and slapping him around a whole bunch, which Jabberjaw remarks that he desperately needed. But in case Scooby then proceeds to find a clue, which is revealed to be a shipping list, which both Captain Caveman and Jabberjaw can't read, since obviously they're cavemen. Since obviously one's a caveman and the other's a shark who can breathe water but otherwise isn't able to read. But Scooby remarks that he can indeed read it, pointing out that it is indeed a shipping list, and Jabberjaw realizing that it's outside the school where they can go and that they can't actually go to the wharf, points out that the next best thing is to actually figure out if Principal Quinlan and Angel Dynamite actually fixed communications, and then proceed to go find Speed Buggy and the two women. Meanwhile, Speed Buggy does eventually wind up climbing up more of the tower, and they eventually find a strange box that, as Angel puts, isn't supposed to be there. And sure enough, upon opening it, discovers that it is indeed the box that's jamming the communication. So she whips out a hammer and just breaks it. Obviously you don't need to be too delicate to disarm it. She just smacks it a whole bunch with a hammer and just dies. At which point she tells Principal Quinlan, who is currently cowering in Speed Buggy's chassis, and tells her to try her cell phone now, and she does conclude that their cell phone does indeed work, but then Lord Infernicus confronts them, pointing out that they weren't supposed to do that, and told them that they weren't able to contact the outside world until the mystery was solved, and with that then throws a fireball at Speed Buggy and causes them to fall off the communications tower and through the roof, which very inconveniently for the three of them causes them to actually wind up landing in the pool. And while Angel Dynamite and Principal Quinlan actually land in the pool and are mostly saved, albeit a little bit dazed, Angel Dynamite does successfully get herself out of the pool while Principal Quinlan just kind of hangs onto the side of it, and Angel does wind up saving Principal Quinlan, with her remarking that Speed Buggy actually wound up saving her, but it's then revealed that Speed Buggy isn't able to actually get out of the pool because he's now stuck, and also he's a Speed Buggy, so he's too heavy to actually get out of the pool anyway. At which point Principal Quinlan reveals that there's actually an emergency off valve for the pool, which Angel winds up finding and turning, and it winds up draining the pool. At which point they proceed to somehow give Speed Buggy CPR despite having none of the bits that would enable them to give him CPR. Obviously he doesn't have a heart because he's a Speed Buggy. There's an engine where his heart should be, so obviously that's not supposed to work. And then Principal Quinlan even remarks this in the episode, but she points out that he doesn't even have a mouth to give resuscitation breaths to. So yeah. Despite that, and despite pointing out that there's no way in hell that they probably wouldn't be able to save him, Angel merely remarks that she's not going to let Speed Buggy die on her watch, and they give him CPR anyway, and it somehow works. He winds up spitting up a whole bunch of water, and it goes all over the place. But they managed to somehow save Speed Buggy and revive him. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but here we are. At which point, Principal Quinlan remarking that she feels alive after having saved a life, and also somewhat develops sociopathic tendencies because she now wants to drown something so she can save it again. Then proceeds to gain a newfound burst of confidence and actually winds up whipping off her glasses and letting her hair down, which makes her a little bit more attractive. I'm not gonna lie, and admittedly now she's much less of a nervous wreck, having gained newfound confidence. But in any case, Angel then interrupts his newfound character development and asks if she has her phone on her, and she does, but it kind of got soaked in the pool, so it doesn't work anymore. But she merely points out that it's only a minor setback since obviously as a school principal she's had to confiscate a lot of phones. Naturally, she points out that the best place to look for them would be her office. So they proceed to get back in the Speed Buggy, and the two women then proceed to drive off, where they eventually meet Scooby, Captain Caveman, and Jabberjaw, who are currently looking for them. And after almost running them over, they eventually get into Speed Buggy and proceed to drive off toward Principal Quinlan's office. At which point they then proceed to exchange information, where Angel reveals that they actually fixed communication, while Scooby remarks that they found a clue about where the kids might be. And eventually they do wind up arriving at Principal Quinlan's office, with Speed Buggy just kind of plowing through it. But he just plows through the door. It's great. Obviously it's a car, so obviously he can't open the door. But in any case, Principal Quinlan then proceeds to open up the drawer where she keeps all of her phones, and proceeds to pick up one of the confiscated phones and calls Sheriff Stone, who believes it's a prank call, and for very valid reasons. As he points out, since it's a confiscated phone, obviously he read the caller ID and knows and doesn't believe that it's actually Principal Quinlan on the other end. And then also points out that obviously since he thinks it's a prank call, they're obviously going to ask if his refrigerator is running, and he remarks that his refrigerator is actually fine, and then tells him to never call again. And it's also implied that the reason his refrigerator isn't running is quite literally in the joke is because he changed it to the wall so it can't actually move. Which is kind of funny and very much in character for Sheriff Stone up until this point. But in any case, realizing that they're not going to be able to rely on the police for help, they then proceed to get in a Speed Buggy and go to the Crystal Cove Pier, where they're actually supposed to go and where that Lauren where the shipping list indicated. And what they find is that they eventually do get to the pier, but they discover that Lauren Fernicus is actually left in a giant shipping tanker and is about to leave Crystal Cove with all of the kids in tow. But And they remark that, and Scooby even remarks that they're too late and they're probably never going to be able to get to him. But and this is where Jabberjaw and Captain Caveman interject, pointing out that that obviously Jabberjaw is the perfect person for the job since he is a shark. And Captain Caveman merely remarks that he just wants to smash something up because obviously Lord Infernicus stole the teen angels and he wants the girls back. At which point he climbs onto Jabberjaw's back, and he and Jabberjaw just kind of try to ram the ship with Lord Infernicus in it, which he points out isn't going to work, and merely starts throwing fire, and merely tells him to get away from his ship and starts throwing fireballs at them, which does deter Jabberjaw, and he points out that he's actually getting away. At which point Captain Caveman points out that he's not going to get away. He's not going to get away for long, and proceeds to just punch a hole through the engine room of the ship so that it just goes down and crashes into the shore. And sure enough, that works, but But then Lauren Fernicus actually just kind of takes an 18-wheeler and proceeds to drive off with it. At which point Angel Dynamite, Scooby, and Speed Buggy and Principal Quinlan actually wind up chasing after him in Speed Buggy, and in the process they look through Scooby's able to actually look through the windows on the 18-wheel on the trailer in the 18-wheeler, and does discover that the kids are actually in the back, and upon seeing Shaggy, he actually calls out Shaggy's name, with Shaggy just telling him to help. At which point Scooby was right realizes his theory about the kids not actually being guinea pigs was right, and that with a newfound resolve to actually stop Lauren Fernicus, Speed Buggy actually winds up driving up next to the cabin, with Angel Dynamite merely telling him to pull over, pointing out that that's the end of the line for him, but Lauren Fergus merely remarks that he admires their tenacity, except not really, and tries to ram them off the road. But in the process, Scooby actually remembers that he actually has guinea pigs, and winds up handing them to Angel so that she can use them to block Lauren Fernicus's vision by blocking his windshield, and it does work. He's unable to drive because there's guinea pigs on his windshield, but so he actually winds up stopping the 18-wheeler to try and clear them off. But by this point, he winds up getting cornered by Speed Buggy, Scooby, and the two women. And then Jabberjaw and Captain Caveman follow behind shortly after and corner him the other way so he can't escape. At which point Jabberjaw points out that his goose is cooked, and proceeds to put him out by shaking water on him. And then Captain Caveman uses his cane. Well, it's revealed that Captain Caveman's club apparently has a pterodactyl in it with a rope on it, and they just proceed to tie him up and disarm him. At which point, while Angel and the principal actually let the kids out, and sure enough, everybody is happy, and Fred even remarks that he feels that he's happy to actually have gotten out of that box, pointing out that it was getting a little musty in there, but points out that it was actually a really well-constructed box regardless. But at which point, Velma actually realizes that the mascots have actually saved the day, and remarks that that's a first, and is actually very happy about that. At which point, Scooby decides to actually unmask Lauren Fernicus, and it's revealed that Lauren Fernicus is indeed the Funky Phantom. So yeah, and then he winds up going into his backstory, explaining that he was tired of being a mascot, and apparently, according to himself, although I have a big X to doubt on that statement, since he claims he's not actually a real ghost, but at the same time, he's shown displaying ghost-like abilities, so clearly that isn't entirely 100% true. But in case he points out that a buddy of his actually, that he according to himself, he's not a ghost, but he is indeed an actor, and also starts talking in his quote unquote real voice. At which point it's revealed that when the Funky Phantom crew found him, he was living in a clock, and after introducing himself, and he decided to uphold the whole ghost charade, and became their mascot, but he eventually started to resent them, pointing out that he felt like he was destined for bigger and better things, and points out that he didn't want to stay a sidekick forever. So what he did is he engineered the whole Warden Fernicus situation to get rid of all the kids and make it so that the mascots can actually take center stage for once. And points out that what he was going to do was just ship them all to Africa, which according to himself has a bit of a deficit for teen mystery solvers. So he was just going to ship them all to Africa and leave them there, so that he can continue to be a star. And then reveals that his entire backstory about how he committed the crime, which is that he actually workshopped his Lord and Fernicus character as part of a bit for his stand-up comedy routine, which he claims was well received, but we see the flashback, and no, it wasn't. At which point he reveals that the reason he was able to be in two places at once when Lauren Fernicus first attacked was because he actually pre-recorded everything and used a projector to play everything out so that it looked like he was still in the room while actually also not. And then for the added touch, he dressed up all of the guinea pigs in cute little clothes to make them look like they're actually the kids. then pointed out that that was supposed to be where it ended, and that they wouldn't be able to actually figure it out once they actually saw the guinea pigs. But obviously, Scooby saw through that whole shenanigans and had to confront them again to get them to leave him alone and not figure out his full plan. And also proceeds to point out that he would have gotten away with it that if it hadn't been for those meddling mascots. And even points out that his plan was kind of perfect, but in case Scooby now happy that he's finally saved the day and has validated himself as a proper team member, is particularly happy with his lot in the life, and the kids and the gang actually starts praising him, pointing out that he, for the first time, he actually saved the day and proved that he's not actually a sidekick. And Scooby is very proud of himself, but then he starts to fall ill in the dream and starts to wake up, and he actually has a panic attack because he thinks his kids are being stolen again. But as it turns out, no, he's just waking up and hasn't realized he was actually in a dream state this entire time. At which point Shaggy merely comforts him, pointing out that he's literally right there and that he's not going to leave his side. But and Scooby is obviously very confused as to what happened. So obviously the kids then proceed to explain that he was actually in a fever dream for several days. He points out that they actually wound up blowing off the Mystery Solvers Club state finals, much to Fred's chagrin. He was not happy about having to skip the state finals, but he pointed out that since his friend was sick, they kind of had no choice. But in case Scooby then points out that he was actually at the state finals and points out that he met all the mascots for all the different groups, but Shaggy merely gestures to the stereo, and it's revealed that all of the quote-unquote mascots that Scooby met are actually just little figurines that Shaggy has apparently collected. So yeah, apparently Shaggy in universe is a Hanna-Barbera fan, and we've established this. He is a fan of like, what is it, Silver Falcon or whoever the hell, but yeah, he is a fan of Silver Falcon, so that is canonically a part of his character. But yeah, Scooby is immediately very confused, but eventually realizes that it was indeed all a dream, but also kind of thanks the group for not going without him, pointing out that obviously once again he reiterates the point that he felt he was just a sidekick and that they obviously didn't need him to solve the mystery, but they merely pointed out that he's not just a sidekick and that he's their friend, and obviously they're not going to go without a friend. And then also Daphne whispers in Scooby's ear that they actually moved the date of the Mystery Solvers Club state finals back so that Scooby could actually go once he was feeling better, and they haven't told Fred yet, so Fred just thinks they missed it, which is kind of messed up and a little bit funny. But in case, Velma also then proceeds to point out that the chairman has actually come to Roger's mansion personally to actually check to see how Scooby is feeling, and Scooby is very proud to have been blessed with such an honor, until he meets the chairman and discovers that the chairman is actually a perfect spitting image of the Funky Phantom, at which point Scooby proceeds to cower under the covers and tells him to get away from him. And that's how the episode ends. But yeah, so this episode overall is just real fun. So obviously the main premise of this episode is that it's a fever dream that Scooby is having while he's delirious from a fever. But this episode overall has no real bearing on the overall plot, and there have been a couple episodes on that, but there have at the very least been small little lore details that have at the very least progressed the overall story and helped character growth. But this episode, not so much. It is a one and done. It is a one and done, completely isolated mystery that has no bearing on the plot, has never had any bearing on the plot, and never will have any bearing on the plot. And I kind of like it for that. But yeah, it is interesting seeing what the mystery is about how all the mascots have to come together and actually wind up investigating a mystery without their kids. It is very interesting, and it's also just really fun seeing all of the mascots from all of the different mystery solving teams that Hanna-Barbera has actually created and are now all owned by Warner Brothers. But it's just fun actually just seeing them again and just see a real who's who of who was created by Hanna-Barbera. So yeah, for that I do kind of enjoy the episode. It's fun to go through the history of go through cartoon history and meet all of these characters again. And then obviously Scoob tried to set that up again as like a multiverse thing where it was like an MCU type thing where they connected them all together in one large movie. And it kind of works there, but not to the extent it does here, because obviously they're actually solving a mystery here. Whereas in Scoob they just kind of do a whole exposition thing every couple of minutes, and then the kids they figure out the thing that we already know. And as well as a new thing that we didn't know before, and that's how Scoob delivers its story. But here it's very much the mystery is first and foremost present in the actual story. But yeah, I do kind of like it. I do kind of like it for that reason, and that it is a good mystery, and it's also just a fun little look at all the different characters that Hanna-Barbera have created over the years. I mean, only a handful of them are actually major to the plot, but I do like it regardless. But in any case, that is my review of Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. What you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks. I'm always saying thanks, so be sure to check those out. Link is down in the description. In any case, also thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to also check out my videos linked in the end screen as well. The top video is the most recent one. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is a video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to try something new or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out my Twitch down in the description below as well. The link is also on the end screen. And yeah, if you guys want to see me do live streams, I stream every Sunday. I may be expanding that soon-ish, but in any case, I stream every Sunday. We're currently streaming Pokemon Legends Arceus, so if you want to see that, by all means, link is down in the description. Just go check those out. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!